In every interaction you're in, especially the ones with women, there's something happening in the background called the context. And what context is, quite simply, is the underlying set of rules within said interaction. The context of the conversation, aka the underlying rules of that conversation, will inevitably dictate how that conversation will go. And there are three major factors that affect the rules of any conversation you're in. The relationship between the two people having that conversation, the physical environment both these people are in, and by far most importantly, the ability for either person within the conversation to change said rules. And yes, the rules can be changed by either party. But we'll get into that later. Let's stick with this right now. The moment you start speaking to a woman, you are confined within a set of rules and boundaries and limits placed on you by her and her expectations, the environment you're in, the people around you, society and culture, etc. Your frame, essentially, are the collection of the rules that you choose to abide by. Your frame is your chosen degree of freedom within that conversation. And it primarily comes down to how you present yourself and how you're perceived. Hold on, I'll give you a few examples. It's completely inappropriate to smack a woman you don't know on the ass. That's a rule you can't break, and there are serious ramifications for something like that. But for a girl you've been dating for a while, pretty fucking normal. The actions were essentially the same. The difference was the frame. Ooh, bars. One guy was a stranger, the other guy was her lover, and that somehow made it okay. Even though if you really think about it, the lover was once a stranger too. Another example would be the way you talk to your friends versus the way you talk to your boss at work. One relationship is casual and the other is formal because of the existence of a power dynamic between you and your boss. Or another way to say it is, there's a lot less risk and consequence involved with busting your friend's balls than there would be with your boss. And because of that, the rules you agree to follow with your boss are a lot stricter. And those rules are your frame. You have a less dominant frame with your boss and a lot more playful frame with your buddies. Oh, and by the way, let me go out of my way to clear up this misconception. If you've been listening to other people in my industry, you might have gone away with the thought that frame is being strong, being solid. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not entirely true. Yes, frames can be strong, but they can also be very fucking weak. Because the frame is just the underlying guidelines of the interaction that you choose to follow. That is all. And most men are steadfast in following guidelines that make them the weaker party in every interaction they're in. Most men have weak frames, fundamentally. Not to be confused with our weak at holding frame. That's an entirely different thing. The culture you were brought up in, the religion you follow, the environment you grew up in, are all factors that do a lot of the heavy lifting for you with regards to your frame. But ultimately, especially in a one-on-one interaction with a woman, you get to decide what frame you want to set. You get to construct and juxtapose the rules of the interaction as it goes. And the major reason for that is because frames are perception-based. In other words, women determine what box they want to put you in by how you present yourself, and then treat you accordingly. It's really human nature. If you present yourself like a boss, then you will be treated like a boss, assuming she actually accepts that frame. If you present yourself like a bum, then you will be treated like a bum until otherwise. Now notice I said, if she accepts your frame. That's because it's very possible for women to reject your frame. Yes, it is up to the woman's discretion to either accept or reject your frame. And the short reason for that is biology. Women reserve the right to reject certain frames if they're not favorable to them, because falling for the wrong frame can be detrimental. Take the case of scams and scam artists, for instance. Because women are more socially calibrated on average than men are, they get a lot of practice and get very good at battling frames. In fact, they've gotten so good at it, they've pretty much created the gynocentric reality we live in today. More on that later. Women are legit world champions at this shit. Unless you walk into an interaction with a woman with some massive leverage, fame, familiarity, good looks, resources, etc., then the automatic frame that a woman juxtaposes on the interaction is that you are beneath her. And because that is the assumption she's going with, the frame she is setting, then that will dictate all her actions and words within that interaction. But don't worry, I have fantastic news. Just like women, we too have the ability to reject frames. And even more, we have a slight advantage when it comes to juxtaposing our frames on top of theirs, because the masculine is a lot harder to bend than the feminine. Here's an example to give you a clear picture here. You walk up to a chick you find attractive. You say, "Excuse me, miss," and before you can say anything else, she says, "Sorry, I don't have any change." without even starting the conversation proper or saying anything to show intent. She has already begun to set the frame. And the frame is, you're a hobo asking her for money. And that's something very important you have to learn about frames. Frames are almost never set overtly, only covertly. You didn't necessarily approach her like a bum would, or at least I'm hoping you didn't. And she didn't overtly call you a hobo, but she said something to you that she would say to hobos, which is a very sneaky way to call you one. That's frame setting right there. And just like that, the frame battle has begun. When it comes to frame battling, there are two things you have to keep in mind. The first is that frames are always inserted and adjusted covertly. That is to say, in any given interaction, the frame and the power dynamic will change in the background, never on the surface. And if you break this rule, you will be deemed socially uncalibrated. And even worse, you will now hold less leverage in the conversation and as a result, a weaker frame. Which also means every frame battle is a subtle struggle for power. The second thing you need to know about frames is that especially when they're already set, there needs to be a justifiable reason to change them. Frames, by nature and design, do not change for no reason at all. And the reasons themselves have to make sense to both parties within the interaction. And that's primarily because changing the frame of any given interaction is essentially changing the terms and conditions of said interaction. You're changing the fundamental rule. And if the rules that govern the interaction change, then so do the parties within the interaction. Okay, hold on. Maybe I'm going too fast. Let's break it down. Plain and simple, women are only attracted to men who are better than them. Another way to put it is, they're only attracted to men who have a stronger frame than they do. Which means in order to attract a woman successfully, you must be the one that holds the stronger frame. The moment she begins to hold a stronger frame for you is the moment she begins to lose attraction for you. Plain and simple. So essentially, the strength of your game comes down to your ability to set a strong frame and to hold it for as long a period of time as you can. And to regain it when you've lost it, because your frame will determine your status in her eye, and your status has to be higher. So basically, frame control is your ability to manipulate your status relative to the girl in her eyes. And please pay attention to this part, this is so important. If you want to get with girls that are out of your league, so to speak, consistently, then this is the only way I know how to do it. Even if you have no real world value to show for it, you have to control the relative status between you and her. And controlling the frames of the interactions you have with her is how you do that. But there's going to be some resistance, and that's where frame battles come in. She's gonna do and say things that subtly indicate that she has higher value than you in the interaction. Your job is to correct that notion and assert yours instead. And I'll admit it might seem complex at first, but it actually gets easier as you go. You just have to remember that frames are like habit. You can't really get rid of one unless you replace it with another. You can't just stop her from seeing you a certain way. You have to change the entire image in a subtle and indirect way. And that's the trickiest part. You have to do all that covertly. You have to work with what you have within the conversation and use that to gain more leverage. Frame battles are always covert, which is why most men aren't even aware when they're happening. They happen every time she subtly hints at the underlying assumption of the interaction, or when she says something that alludes to the dynamic of the interaction you're having with her. Here's a few very popular examples. When she says, "Sorry, I have a boyfriend." On the surface, what she's saying is, "I have a boyfriend." The hidden meaning behind that is she's trying to tell you she's not available, which is something she will only feel the need to say if you were making inquiries of her relationship status. So you see, if she tells you, "I have a boyfriend," without you actually making any inquiries about her relationship status, she's placing the assumption on the interaction like that's what you were trying to do, even though that might have not been the case necessarily. And just like that, in 4 words, the new frame of the interaction is you're trying to hit on her and she's trying to get rid of you by telling you she has a boyfriend. So now you have to battle that frame by placing yours on top. And you have many options to choose from. Let's go through them. You could say something to the effect of, "Oh, that's fine, he doesn't have to know." Which is an okay response, assuming you're okay with completely buying into her frame. Her frame being, mind you, that you're a nuisance that she's trying to get rid of. So you saying the boyfriend won't know, even if you're saying it playfully, is just not effective here. Your second option is to go, "Oh, you have a boyfriend? That makes sense. The mid ones always have a boyfriend." That one is better because now you're actually fighting her frame with yours. And clearly your new assumption is, I can't be hitting on you. You're a mid. The problem with that though is you've completely botched the interaction. Plus you've broken the first rule of frame battles. You can't fight them overtly, only covertly. You might be thinking, yeah, that was a subtle dig at her, but you made a remark about her when she didn't necessarily make one about you. You're just being childish here. Your third option is, oh wow, you have a boyfriend? He's such a lucky guy. It's a complete buying into her frame, but even worse, because now you're in reaction to another man. Gross. A fourth option for you, and honestly one of my personal favorites, is you say, ugh, you have a boyfriend? I'm so sorry to hear that. How long have you been suffering from this deadly disease? My sincerest condolences. The reason why that's killer is, one, it's very playful, it's funny and fun, but two, it's a complete dismissal of her frame. I didn't directly address the underlying frame she was trying to set, which is, you're trying to hit on me. Instead, I just created a different one entirely. Her having a boyfriend is bad. Another good one you can use is, oh, it's just a boyfriend, not a husband? Oh, okay, that's cool. Again, complete dismissal, but of both this time. Not just the fact that she's trying to say I'm hitting on her, but on the fact that the boyfriend is a deterrent. Okay, I'm going to break down for you an example of a frame battle. I'm going to show you a couple renegotiating the power in their relationship dynamic in real time, where on the surface they appear to be arguing about one thing, but in reality there's a different power struggle happening in the background. The people in the video I'm about to show you are Steven Crowder and his ex-wife. For context, Steven Crowder is a very famous political speaker, and he recently finalized his divorce from his ex-wife and made an announcement about it, where he made certain claims about the divorce and why it happened. Long story short, his ex-wife wasn't happy about the narrative he was putting out there, and she decided to put out a security camera video of her and Steven back when they were still married in 2019 having an argument, which by the way is in itself an attempt at changing the frame, but we'll get into that later. I'm going to be showing you the video and making you see it from the perspective of frames. Now before we get into this video properly, I do want to make a few things very clear. First things first, I'm going to be completely dismissing the fact that Steven's ex-wife here is pregnant in this video. I shouldn't have to say that, to be honest, but this is social media. Someone's going to have a problem with me doing that. And the major reason I'm doing that is purely scientific. I feel like it'll distract from the actual frame battle going on, because we all know that pregnant women have the automatic immunity and right to victimhood. Rightfully so, by the way. They are very vulnerable in that state. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't nuanced. They take that to mean that pregnant women cannot be questioned or at fault. Otherwise, you're bullying her. And that's why these captions are very popular right now. People have no problem instantaneously vilifying Steven Crowder because his wife was pregnant in the video. And personally, I think that's bullshit. So for the sake of nuance and not being biased, I'm going to completely dismiss her pregnancy in this video breakdown. We're going to be looking purely at the words being exchanged and the purpose behind them. Besides, pregnancy or not, bitches be goofy. Let's move on. Pay very close attention.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel.
Oof, we landed right in the middle of this one, didn't we? Right out the gate, Steve is trying to set a frame. Now, why exactly is he doing that? What's the issue here?
Boundary at abusive and cruel. You are not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There's no groceries. I have
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not unreasonable, but I'll go do it. How about you first?
So he seems to have an issue with the compliance levels he's getting from his wife. And he's decided the best way to deal with that is to take away her vehicular transportation privileges. And that's operant conditioning 101, by the way. Maybe not executed in the best way or at the best time, but operant conditioning nonetheless.
How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? How do you man? You see the love of
respect.
No. How do you man? No, you're not taking.
He seems to have an issue with the lack of respect he feels in the relationship, and he believes this is the best way to go about gaining that respect, by pointing out to her her lack of respect and defiance towards him, which, by the way, I don't recommend, and the reason why is evident in this video.
Respect.
No. How do you man? No, you're not taking love.
You see that? That's her attempt at leaving the conversation. She doesn't listen, she doesn't care. All she cares about is taking control of the frame of this conversation, gaining more leverage and power in the relationship, at least in this video anyway. It's very clear from where I stand that there were many attempts before the start of this video, but I digress.
No, you're not taking love.
Stephen,
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You are not
then I
taking
will ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
the car. Right?
Stephen Crowder reasserts his frame, you're not taking the car. She, in turn, being the very helpful individual she is, offers an alternative solution. Or does she? She said she'll ask someone else to pick her up, which was very crafty and very clever of her to do because she knew it would get a rise out of Stephen Crowder. And it did.
Then I will ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Right?
His name's Stephen.
Get an Uber.
And just like that, Steven recognizes what's happening and hits her with the counter punch. You see, a massive advantage people like Stephen Crowder has is that he debates people all the time. And because of that, he can very quickly detect when there is an attempt at trying to assert a new frame. So kudos to him, he caught that one. And he immediately hit her with the, fine, call an Uber. Very good. And you know it has maximum effect because look at her reaction afterward.
Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
But then he does this.
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Stephen.
go. Listen to me. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
Like I said before, it's just a bad idea to try to get women to understand you and your struggles. They don't care. In fact, she immediately changes the subject.
Made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Do
you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you're going to be back when I'm back?
Stephen.
He pulls her right back in and she gets frustrated because she's realizing, damn, I can't get him to go off the course here. And because she feels trapped here, she's now going to start pulling out the big gun. And the biggest gun for any woman in any argument is victimhood. Now this is important. Pay very close attention to what I have to say here.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
And now they've reached what I like to call the point of contention. Look, every relationship has arguments and fights. Not only is it normal for a man and a woman in a relationship to have a disagreement because of the fundamentally transactional nature of relationships, and yes, relationships are transactional, it is also necessary for the growth of the relationship because fights are not only an amazing opportunity to understand your partner better and understand how to serve them better, but also strengthen the bond between you and your partner by investing in each other more. Because couples that aren't invested in each other don't fight. There's no need. And now that you're seeing things from that new perspective, let me ask you this. In this video of Stephen Crowder and his ex-wife, who do you think is more invested in the relationship? Who's more willing to fight and hash things out, and who keeps trying to make their way to the door? Keep that in mind. That's important. Alright, roll the clip.
You give up so easily? I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your abuse is sick.
She's sticking to the original frame, she said. That's honestly brilliant on her part. And by the way, this is a tactic women use all the time. Women will pull out a popular buzzword, attach it to you, and then just keep using it and hope that it sticks. And the fucked up part about it is, it's actually a very effective strategy to use against most men. Say a lie long enough, people will begin to believe it. Asserting and reasserting a frame over and over and over again has a very similar effect. Now let's watch how Stephen deals with this.
Stephen, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
Not good. Not good. First of all, she did it real slick, by the way. She didn't say directly, you're abusive. She said, your abuse is sick. Very well implied. But then he hits her with the, watch it. The reason that's a bad way to respond to that is because he's being defensive, which is the same as completely buying into the frame. When you're hit with an accusation that devastating, there's only 3 ways to get out of it. The lesser of the 3 ways is to flip it on her. You play to the position of the victim and you accuse the other person of being the abuser. That's where the word gaslighting comes in. Which is kind of ironic if you think about it, because if you are the abuser, then that's exactly what you're doing. Second thing you can do is invalidate the messenger. For instance, oh, I'm the abuser, but you're the one with the cabinet full of pills, huh? Invalidating the messenger weakens the message. Propagandists have known this for thousands of years. The third thing you can do, and honestly the best thing you can do, is humor. For example, hey, don't call me no abuser. The only thing getting abused in this house is that pussy. Whether you make the other person laugh or not is completely irrelevant, although it does help if they do. But the point is, a ruthless abuser would never be that humorous in a situation that tense. So humor is a good way to dismiss the frame. All right, roll the clip.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right then, Pastor. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife, no matter the what.
This, in my opinion, is honestly very fair. First of all, he's being very consistent about what his issues are here, which is the lack of respect in the relationship and the levels of compliance he's not getting from her. It's very clear from the way Steven talks, in his mind, there are inextricable links between respect, love, and compliance. And so his argument is very simple. If you love me, you will do A, B, C, D. But then you go out of your way to tell me how much you love me and still are defiant. Haven't we all been there?
No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything.
This, in my mind, is the most vindicating part of this entire video for Steven Crowder, because he literally looks like a prophet here right now. If I wasn't holding my phone with this hand, I would be slow clapping right now. Not only does he communicate his issue with the relationship dynamic, he also manages to pull off a live demonstration. Like, it's literally on video. It's right there. She says she loves him and is committed to him. He says, okay, cool then. If you are in love with me, do this. And then what does she do?
I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things?
And then he calls her out for it.
You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you, I'm committed to you. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
Okay, that I don't like. He should have never gotten up from that couch at any point in this entire interaction. I had a mentor once tell me, when you're interacting with a woman, pick a spot and just stay there the entire time. No orbiting or unnecessary movements. She should be the one doing the orbiting. The analogy he gave me was, you're the Earth and she's the moon circling around you. The way I like to put it is, imagine there was an aerial video, much like this one, of you and her interacting with each other, and it was sped up to 4 times the speed. Who in that video would be zigzagging all over the place in fast motion? You or the girl? Make sure it's not you. Also, I don't like how quickly he walked up to her like that. In the world we live in today, that can genuinely be misconstrued for aggression. He allowed his need for control to take over his logical mind momentarily. Not a good look.
Are you committed to do anything?
I'm gonna just
walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed?
When I first saw the video, I was confused about that last part. He needs her to put on gloves? Why? I didn't understand it, but I knew one thing automatically. Whatever he was asking her to do, it was definitely for her own safety, and she was being stubborn. Sure, obviously biased statement. I'm aware. But I know women. There's almost nothing more frustrating on this planet than trying to save a woman from herself. It is wild.
Committed enough to get the medication the doctor. What, you take that in?
There's no video proof of any of that happening, so I'm not going to speak on that. But as a scientist, I have to admit there is a possibility that did occur. From the way he was behaving before in the video, especially with the way he walked up to her, it's somewhat safe to believe that he did get angrier when they got inside and then became verbally abusive. Oh, and by the way, became verbally abusive. Because there's absolutely nothing in this entire video that indicates any kind of abuse to me. Sorry. I realize that's the narrative most people are running with, but it's completely wrong. Was he controlling? At times, but so was she. They both made attempts to influence each other's behavior. That's the point of an argument. Was he mean-spirited and aggressive? Not towards her, really. What I personally saw more of was frustration. Genuine frustration. And he was frustrated for a reason, damn it, every man feels frustrated in any relationship. He felt like he wasn't being respected. And what about that "I don't love you" statement? Does that count as abuse? Absolutely fucking not. That is male honesty at its finest. It's not like he said, "I don't love you," and then just left it at that. He went on to give the reason. He communicated clearly. But of course, in a gynocentric centered society, male honesty is illegal. And no, that's not me exaggerating, by the way. In conclusion, this is entirely Steven Crowder's fault, because it is always the man's fault. While it may be true that he was able to prove in real time that he was dealing with a defiant woman, women don't become defiant overnight for no reason. He clearly did things within the relationship that made her feel unsafe and not looked after. And when women don't feel safe in a relationship anymore, they begin to look for an exit. This entire video was made and clipped up as a part of her exit strategy. But it looks like ultimately Steven Crowder got ahead of her in that department. It's been your boy Jace, your favorite scientist, and do with this information what you will.